I flew 13 hours to surprise Mom for Thanksgiving after paying off her $58,000 mortgage, and she called security on me. She said surprises or for people who belong. I said nothing, I just left without a word. And that night I pressed one button and started something none of them saw coming. Surprises or for people who belong here, she said, staring at me like I was a stranger on the street, not her son, not the boy who once mowed lawns and triple-digit heat to help keep the lights on, not the man who drained his savings to pay off her mortgage so she could retire early. No to her. I was just an inconvenience now. That's when she called security. I hadn't seen my mother in over 2 years, were kept me busy, long hours, constant travel, building a startup from scratch. But I never stopped helping rent, repairs, even paid off her house last spring without telling her. I thought it would be the ultimate gift, freedom, security, peace. But the phone stayed silent. No thank you, no how are you, not even a text. I told myself she must be busy, overwhelmed maybe. So when Thanksgiving approached and I had some time off, I booked a surprise flight from Zurich, 13 hours layovers. Delays. I carried a bouquet of her favorite yellow roses. I even brought pumpkin pie from the bakery she used to love. As the taxi pulled up, I felt like a kid again, nervous, hopeful. I climbed the front steps and rang the bell, flowers and handpot in my throat. I heard footsteps, the door creaked open. In there she was, my mother, looking exactly as I remembered. Her hair pinned up in that perfect bond, glass is slipping down her nose, a cardigan wrapped tightly around her shoulders like a shield. What her face didn't light up, instead her expression hardened. What are you doing here? She asked, voice cold, brittle. Surprising you, I said, smiling. It's Thanksgiving. She glanced behind her, and for the first time I noticed the sound of laughter, people inside, familiar voices, my brother, my sister, their spouses, kids, a whole celebration I hadn't been invited to. I flew across the world to see you, I said, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. You should have called. I wanted to surprise you. She stepped outside, shutting the door behind her. Surprises, she said slowly, or for people who belong. I blinked. She looked past me, waved down a man in a security jacket who was watching from the gate. He's not welcome, she said. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The security guard walked over, hesitant. I think he expected me to yell, the cause a scene. But I didn't. I just nodded, and I left. I walked back to the street, dragging my suitcase behind me, pie in one hand, roses and the other. I didn't look back. I didn't say a word. But that night in my hotel room, I pressed one button, and as darted something none of them saw coming. It didn't start with Thanksgiving, it started long before. I just hadn't wanted to see it. When Dad died 5 years ago, everything shifted, not suddenly, quietly, like a faucet leaking until the floors flooded, and you never heard the drip back then. I moved heaven and earth to support Mom. She was shot. I'd heard crying every night, unable to get out of bed. I flew home, took unpaid leave, paid the mortgage, handled the funeral. I didn't ask for anything in return. I was the good sign, the responsible one, the fixer. In for a while it felt worth it. She called me or her rock, my siblings, Rachel and Bean, so did back, barely lifting a finger. Bean posted about honoring Dad on Facebook while I cleaned out his garage alone. Rachel sobbed dramatically at the funeral, then left early because her yoga retreat in Tulum couldn't wait. But I told myself it's grief, people act strange, give them time. Then came the asks. It started so. More, can you cover the water bill? Rachel's car broke down and she can't afford the repair. Bean's startup is struggling, he just needs a bridge loan. I said yes again and again because that's what family does, right? I didn't see it then, but they weren't leaning on me. They were building a system, one where I was the ATM, and they were the VIF customers. 2 years ago, I paid off Rachel's credit card debt, $9,000. She cried on the phone, told me I saved her life. A month later, she posted Instagram stories from a beachside Airbnb with the caption, manifesting luxury. Then he needed just $5,000 to launch a digital art gallery. Enough, these are the future, he said. I never saw the money again. Where the gallery and Mom, she played innocent, sweet, helpless. But she was the architect, the one forwarding me Rachel's video request with a sad emoji, the one who forgot to mention that she'd co-signed Bin's third loan using my name, and till the debt collectors started calling me in Switzerland. I confronted her once. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to stress you. She said, you're always so stable, you're the strong one. I almost believed her. But then 3 months before Thanksgiving, I got a call from the back. Congratulations, the woman said, your mortgage payment cleared. Your balance is now zero. I blinked. What mortgage? On the house in Pennsylvania, Mrs. Hormone's residence, my mother's house. I'd set up the payment schedule a year ago. When she cried over her overdue bills, I paid for $1,800 a month silently without telling her, a total of $58,000. I thought when she found out she'd cry again. But this time with joy. She didn't even call, not a word. Instead, Rachel texted me 2 days later, hey Mom, says the house is paid off. Guess that means you've got cash. Now Bean needs help covering Rent and I, not even a thanks, that was the moment something snapped and me, not loudly, quietly. It was the realization that I wasn't family, not to them. I was a role, the aside, a resource, a walking credit line. I stopped responding to messages. They kept coming. Bean emailed me a Google Doc titled Family Support Spreadsheet. It had suggested contributions from me for the next quarter, like I was a board member of their lives. Rachel sent me screenshots of flights to Paris asking if I could give her the miles. Mom forwarded me a quote for a new kitchen renovation, $22,000, with the subject line, "You always said you wanted me to live comfortably." No one asked how I was doing that. No, I was battling insomnia, that I hadn't taken a vacation in 3 years, that my company was bleeding cash. And I was skipping my own salary to keep my team employed. They didn't ask because they didn't care. The only call I got from Mom that entire month was when my payment didn't go through on her Amazon account. "Your card must have expired," he said, annoyed. "My card, not even high." That's when I started planning a surprise. I thought maybe showing up would reset something, remind her I'm not just numbers on a screen, that I'm her son, that I exist beyond what I give. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I just booked a flight, bought the flowers, the pie, rented Airbnb nearby. But when she saw me, all she said was surprises, or for people who belong. Then she called security. I went back to my Airbnb. That night, shaking with rage, there was this pressure in my chest like I was about to explode. I pieced the room over and over until finally I pulled out my phone, impressed one, and I posted not just a petty tweet. I dumped everything: receipts, screenshots, the spreadsheet, the emails. I blurred names, but told the truth. I wrote for 5 hours straight. I didn't care about the fallout. I paid off my mom's $58,000 mortgage, flew 13 hours to surprise her for thanks. Good. Irving, she called security and said surprises or for people who belong. I said nothing, just left. But that night I pressed one button and started something none of them saw coming. It went viral, and 6 hours, 50,000 likes. By morning, strangers call me a hero. Others shared their own stories of toxic families and financial abuse. Therapist quoted my thread. Influencers deemed me, even a celebrity retweeted it, saying families don't get to exploit you just because you share. Block. Rachel texted me, "Are you insane? Take that down." Being sent 3 back-to-back messages. Dude, seriously, what is this? You're ruining Mom's reputation. This is so low. Mom finally called. I didn't answer for 3 days. I didn't say a word, not to Rachel, not to Ban, not to my mother. But they didn't stop. The messages became France. Dick, angry, then desperate. "You humiliated the family. This isn't how we fix things. Delete that post or never come back here again." I wasn't planning to. But I wasn't done either. On the 4th day, Mom sent me a voice message. Her tone was calm but sharp. "What I sweetness, honey. I'm trying to be the adult here. You're clearly upset. But you made your point. Okay, now it's time to clean it up. Rachel's job is at risk." Bin's landlord saw the post and is asking questions. And people, I go to church with her calling me. She paused for a fact. "Is that what you wanted, to shame your own mother in front of the entire internet?" I stared at my screen for a full minute. And then I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "Oh, so now you're ready to talk? I'm coming over," I said flatly. "Be there." And 30. She hesitated. "Wait, what do you mean coming over?" "I mean unlock the door." I hung up when I walked up to the front porch, the same one she's slammed in my face just days ago. It felt different, not like I was returning to a home or like a war zone. Ben's car was in the driveway, Rachel's SUV too. Perfect. I wanted them all there. Mom opened the door before I could knock. Her face was tied, arms crossed. Rachel was behind her on the stairs, glaring. Bean was in there, leaning on the counter like a lawyer prepping for cross-examination, finally ready to apologize. Rachel sneered. "Sit down." I said. No one moved. I said, "Sit down." They sat. I pulled out a folder, paper, old school, printed screenshots, payment records, bank transfers, as invoices, all of it. "This," I said, tossing it on the table, "is every dollar I've given this family in the last 6 years." Mom glanced at it, then looked away. "You think I made you look bad online? I've been cleaning up after you people for years, quietly, without complaint, while you mock me behind my back. Do you want to know what's actually embarrassing? That it took me going viral for any of you to realize how disgusting this has become." Being scoffed. "You're acting like we forced you. You offered to help." "No," I snapped. "I was manipulated. There's a difference. You play they were family card every time you needed money. But when I showed up at the door with flowers and beer, got security, Mom's voice for us because you humiliated us." I turned to her, eyes burning. "You humiliated yourself. I paid off your mortgage, $58,000. And you couldn't even text me. You planted entire Thanksgiving dinner and pretended I didn't exist." Her lips curled. "You always act like a victim." I laughed. "No, I acted like a son. You treated me like an investment plan. And when I stopped yielding profit, you shut the door in my face." Rachel slammed a glass down You don't get to judge us. You're not a saint just because you make more money. No, Rachel, I'm not a saint. But I'm also not your walking wallet being up trying to. Over me, you think money makes you better than us? No, I said, rising to meet him. I die. But it opened my eyes wide. Then I dropped the final bomb. I spoke to an attorney. Silence. Mom blank for what? I pulled out a second envelope. Remember the co-signing on Pin's loan without telling me? That's called for financial fraud. Been turned pale. I'm not pressing charges for now. But that loan is now officially yours. I had it reassigned. You're welcome. He opened his mouth, closed it, sat down. Rachel looked at me like I'd grown horns. You're being petty, vindictive. No. I'm setting boundaries. I looked around the table one last time. This was never about money. It was about respect, and none of you have shown me an ounce of it. Mom shook her head like I was a child throwing a tantrum. You've made your point. Are you happy? No, I said. But I will. I picked up my phone, opened my banking app. One tap, transfer cancelled. Automatic payments gone. Apple Pay to Mom's. Amazon disconnected. Bin's credit card backup. Email removed. I smiled. Happy Thanksgiving. Then I walked out again. But this time I didn't leave quietly. When I left that house for the second time, I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. Something inside me burned to ash, and what rose from it wasn't sadness. It was clarity. I was done being the dependable one, done being the strong one. While they bled me dry behind a smile that night, I turned off my phone and poured myself a drink at the Airbnb. The notifications were still pouring, and online my story had passed 100,000 shares. People from all over the world were messaging me, strangers calling me brave therapist, writing threads about emotional and measurement, reporters asking for interviews. But none of that hit me the way one single comment did. The people who say you're cruel are the ones who fed off your silence. I reread that 10 times because it was true. The next morning, I boarded a return flight to Zurich. As the plane lifted, so did the weight on my chest. For the first time in years, I wasn't calculating how much money I'd left to send someone. I wasn't scanning my inbox for another video request disguised as a family emergency. I just stared out the window and exhaled, and then silence. Glorious aching silence. No text from Mom, no guilt bombs from Rachel, no urgent calls from Bit. But not because they didn't try. I had blocked them. All the first week back felt surreal. I kept expecting to feel guilty, like some invisible hand would reach into my chest and twist, but it never came. Instead, I felt peace. I worked without distraction, slept a full night, took a walk at 2 a.m. just because I could. I even booked myself a weekend retreat in the Alps. Nothing fancy, but the kind of thing I used to tell myself I didn't have time for. But chaos doesn't die quietly. 2 weeks later, Rachel tried to go public. She posted, "A passive-aggressive family shouldn't be." Transactional post with vague references to someone exploiting the internet for attention. For friends cheered or on. But unfortunately for her, the internet wasn't buying it. Screenshots of her old messages, led ones, where she bragged about milking her rich brother like a cash cow. That post was deleted within 24 hours. Didn't say anything online, but I knew he was spiraling when I got a call from a block number. And it was his boss. Turns out, Bean had listed me as a professional reference. And I guess someone had found the viral threat. Is all this true? The guy asked. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Bean got fired the same week. Mournful. He actively doubled down. Friends told me she was telling everyone I'd lost my mind and had turned against the family. She even held a little dinner at her house. Same table, same turkey, fewer guests. I saw a photo. She looked tired, worn down, and for once no one was performing. Then something happened I didn't expect. People in the extended family started reaching out, not to scold me, but to say thank you. Anne, and I barely knew, sent me a DM. "I've always admired how you handle things. Now I understand how much they put on you." A cousin in Ohio messaged, "When I read your story, I cried. I've been going through the same thing with my parents. You gave me courage." Even Mom's sister, who hadn't spoken to her and over a decade, wrote, "Your mother did the same thing to me. I just didn't have the strength to walk away. You did." That's when I knew I hadn't blown up the family or exposed the rod that was already there. The money wasn't the issue. It never was. It was the entitlement. Performance, the way they only showed love when there was something to gain. Without my money, there was nothing bind them together anymore. I was the glue. And when I pulled away, the cracks split wide open. But the biggest surprise came 3 weeks later. I was at work when my assistant poked her head. "And there's someone downstairs asking to see." He said, "He's your brother." I stood there frozen. "Which one?" She blinked. "He didn't say. But he looks rough." It was Bean. I met him in the lobby, arms crossed. He looked ruined here. A mess. I sunk in. He had lost weight. No smug grin, no rehearsed lights. He looked up at me. I messed up. No defense, no accusations, just those 3 words. I didn't say anything. He swallowed hard. I lost my job. Rachel won't speak to me. Mom's acting like she's the one who's been betrayed. I kept staring. I know I can't take it back, he said. But I came to tell you something. He pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. He had paid off the full balance on the loan. He co-signed with my name. No help from Mom. No help from Rachel, just him. I'm fixing what I can, he said. And I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't hug him. I didn't cry. But I nodded. That was enough. I didn't go back. Now for Christmas, not for birthdays, not. Even when Mom accidentally texted me a blurry photo of an old family album with the message, "Some memories are priceless," I left her on read. And you know what? I didn't feel guilty, because for the first time in my life, I had nothing to explain. I wasn't a villain. I was the one who finally turned off the faucet while everyone else screamed that the water was their birthright. I used to think family meant unconditional love. Now I know some families mean unconditional access, access to your time, access to your money, access to your silence. And when you take that away, they don't mourn you. They mourn the services you provided. My mother didn't miss me. She missed the mortgage getting paid on time. Rachel didn't miss her brother. She missed the free fall. Whites the video, hits the "hey, can you just?" Then he got it eventually. But only because life finally told him no. The way I never did. I still remember the last message Mom sent before I blocked her for good. "You are always the difficult one. Maybe if you just tried harder, we wouldn't be here." I laugh. So hard I nearly dropped my phone. I tried harder than any of them. I tried so hard. I paid for 3 lives that weren't mine, and they still call me selfish when I finally chose myself. And here's the twist: they'll never admit they needed me more than I ever needed them, because now I'm thriving. I sleep, I hike, I eat food that tastes good, because it's for me. I booked a month off next spring. No emergencies to plan around, no draining accounts to refill someone else's irresponsibility. People ask me if I regret making my story public. Not for a second, because sometimes shame is the only currency. Abusers understand. They didn't care when I was drowning quietly, but when I stood up and said finally chose to take back control, the world hurt it, and they hated that.